Injuries we see frequently as a result of car wrecks are fractures, and this is especially true for those that are a result of high-speed collisions. I think it's important to note that all fractures are not the same. A fracture simply means a bone is broken, but what can be different from patient to patient is the type of the fracture. The most common types of fractures we see are, and there are 5 of them, 1, stable fractures. This is where the broken ends of the bone line up and the bones are not really out of place. 2, open compound fractures. The bone may actually penetrate the skin, and these are pretty horrific breaks. 3, transverse fractures. This is where the break has a horizontal fracture line. 4, oblique fractures. With these fractures, the break has an angle pattern. And finally, 5, comminuted fractures. This is where the bone shatters into 3 or more pieces. Now, the most common causes of fractures are trauma. Sometimes people may be more susceptible to fractures because of their age and a condition known as osteoporosis. This is a disorder which can weaken the bones and make them more likely to break. People may think that it would be pretty obvious when you have a broken bone. In the case of most fractures, especially the open compound fracture where the bone can penetrate the skin, this is certainly true. But this is not always the case with some fractures. For example, we recently had a client think his wrist was just sprained in the wreck because he was gripping the steering wheel when the impact occurred. But because he had persistent pain in the wrist and swelling, he went and had it x-rayed. The x-ray showed a non-displaced fracture of the distal radius. The most common way for a doctor to diagnose a fracture is with an x-ray. Now, just because an x-ray is negative and there is no fracture, it doesn't mean the patient will not have continuing pain and discomfort in that area of the body. We've had so many clients go to the emergency room immediately after a wreck. The x-rays are taken and they don't show any fractures. However, it was later discovered from other testing, such as an MRI or CT scan, that they had a herniated disc in their back or neck or a torn rotator cuff. The important takeaway is this: if you are still having pain, discomfort, swelling, or tenderness after a wreck, don't assume everything is okay because the x-rays were negative in the emergency room. Get in to see a doctor for a complete physical examination and allow him or her to determine if additional testing is needed. Let's quickly address the types of treatment that can be given for a fracture. 1, the first way is through cast immobilization. A fiberglass or plaster cast is placed over the fractured area to keep the broken ends of the bone in place for healing. This is what we typically see, as most broken bones can heal successfully once they have been repositioned in a cast. The second way is with a functional cast or brace. These are not as rigid as a fiberglass or plaster cast and allow some limited or controlled movements. And the third way is with traction. This is often used to align a bone or bones with a gentle pulling action or pressure to keep the bones in place. The final way, fourth way, is through surgery. And in most situations, the surgeon will use what's called a fixation device. He or she will place metal pins or screws into the broken bone, often above and below the fractured bone. The plates, pins, and screws can either be internal, meaning the hardware is inside the skin, or external, meaning the pins or screws are connected to a metal bar outside the skin. The goal of the fixation device is to stabilize the bones and hold them in place in the proper position and alignment until the fractured bone can heal. With fractures, what can a patient expect their healing time to be? Well, it really depends on a lot of factors. The severity of the fracture, whether or not the doctors were able to get and keep proper alignment, the age of the individual, and whether or not there are other factors which could prevent or slow down the healing process. It's a simple reality. The younger we are, the more likely we are able to heal faster, and there is less chance a patient will be suffering from osteoporosis. Doctors often tell patients that a diet that is rich in calcium and vitamin D will help promote bone strength. One final thing. Clients often tell us that the pain subsides well before the cast comes off, but this does not mean the fractured site is solid enough for you to be weight-bearing or to handle the stresses of your normal activity. Always defer to the doctor about when the cast should be removed. Even after it's removed, you may need to limit your activity for some time. If you have sustained any kind of fracture as a result of an on-the-job injury or car wreck, please give us a call. 770-934-8000. Learn your rights and the insurance company's responsibilities.